Hi, I'm Marc, and welcome to the weekly Outside Views report on European politics. Shortly before Ursula von der Leyen's visit to Ukraine, Russia launched more than 24 missiles into the country. The head of the EU Commission celebrated Europe Day together with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Tuesday in Kiev. She praised Kiev's progress towards EU membership. The Christian Democrat politician from Germany also had to put up with the criticism from her host about the import restrictions on Ukrainian grain. And Russia celebrated victory over Nazi Germany 78 years ago with a parade in Moscow. And I'll come to that later. But Russia fired around 24 missiles at Ukraine on the night of the so-called Victory Day, which commemorates the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, 23 of a total of 25 missiles were intercepted on Tuesday. The authorities of the capital Kiev and the regions of Dnipropetrovsk and Cherkasy reported damage from missile debris. Nothing was initially known about possible victims. Moscow called the missile attacks a success. The aim of the strike was achieved. All designated objects were hit. Well, at least Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said that in Moscow on Tuesday. Troops of the Ukrainian reserve and ammunition depots were fired on with high-precision weapons. May 9th is a holiday in Russia, traditionally commemorating the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. And this year, Russian soldiers who fought in the war of aggression against Ukraine, which has now been going on for more than 14 months, also marched in the big military parade on the Red Square in Moscow. In view of this, the advisor to the Ukrainian presidential office, Mikhailo Podolyak, spoke of a murderous parade. Putin presented himself as a victim of his own war of aggression, and during a speech on Victory Day in Moscow's Red Square, Russian President Putin repeated the propaganda claim that his country was defending itself in Ukraine against an insurgent fascism. What a bullshit. Even after well over a year war, he could not boast of any military successes, though. A real war has been unleashed against our fatherland, Putin said, referring to the fighting raging in Ukraine, which he himself ordered more than a year ago. But we fought back international terrorism. We will protect the residents of Donbass and we will ensure our security, he said. He also once again claimed that Ukraine has become hostage to Western states that wanted to destroy Russia. Their goal is the disintegration and destruction of our country. What a Goebbels. In contrast to war Poland-Russia, Ukraine has meanwhile decided to bring forward the commemoration of the victory over the Wehrmacht to May 8th. On May 9th, on the other hand, Europe Day is to be celebrated in Kiev. During her visit, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen paid tribute to Ukraine for its efforts to quickly join the international community. The country is working tirelessly and intensively to meet the requirements for the start of accession negotiations, she said. And this despite the difficulties of carrying out reforms in a bloody war. According to von der Leyen, the EU Commission will verbally submit an initial assessment of Ukraine's current reform efforts to the Council of Member States as early as June. A written report is then to be issued in October, on the basis of which a decision on the start of accession negotiations is then to be made. Ukraine has been a candidate for accession since last summer. The 27 EU member states must decide unanimously on negotiations. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky used von der Leyen's visit to criticize import restrictions on agricultural products, which he described as protectionist measures by the neighbors. Any restrictions on our exports are now absolutely inadmissible, he said at a press conference. He warned that trade restrictions should only be imposed after consultation with Kiev and called for them to be lifted. In April, EU countries bordering Ukraine blocked imports of a number of Ukrainian agricultural products. An import ban on Ukrainian grain has been in effect in 5 EU countries since the beginning of May. This should expire at the beginning of June. Farmers in Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria had complained about massive competition from Ukraine after import duties were lifted. The usual export from the Ukraine via the Black Sea ports is restricted due to the war that Russia started more than 14 months ago. And the Russian mercenary group Wagner says it has not yet received the ammunition promised by the Ministry of Defense in Moscow. Overall, only half of the requested positions were approved, and only a fraction of the amount of ammunition requested came in, as Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin complained in a video that his press service published on Telegram on Tuesday morning. The Wagner mercenaries are fighting in the Russian war of aggression for the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, which has been going on for more than 14 months and has become the focus of the war in Ukraine. The city, in which a good 70,000 people lived before the war, has now been almost completely destroyed. A few days ago, Prigozhin threatened the Kremlin with the withdrawal of his units from Bakhmut by Wednesday because of the high losses and lack of ammunition. Shortly thereafter, he declared that he had been assured of sufficient artillery shells. Now he complained that the promise had not been kept. And very short before I started filming this video, there are reports that the Ukrainian forces gained ground in Bakhmut and that the Russian forces had severe casualties there. But it's not completely verified and so on. But I just want to mention this, that this is the point where I'm filming. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.